Welcome back, ladies and gents, as we head on to Game 2 of the Pacific Championship Series, day number 1. And it's going to be between Liyab Gaming versus Berjaya Dragons, two teams that come out of the former Southeast Asia region. One is the Filipino representative and the other one the Malaysian representative playing out here. And, you know, both of these teams had kind of different storylines coming into spring. Liyab didn't do so hot. It was the 10th place team in the PCS. While on the other hand, Berjaya Dragons was actually the best performing team out of the non-former LMS regions. So, you know, a bit of a mismatch here. However, we are going to see if the roster changes will shake these squads up a little.
Yeah, and I mean, the storyline going through at least the split is who can catch up to PSG, and on the flip side, can Liyab ever get out the gates? So this time around, they haven't made too many changes. They've dropped Coach Cabbage, which is a little bit unfortunate, but TG, he's going to be in charge of the squad, and they've added a new support, which hasn't had any pro experience, so it'll be a pretty fresh look for everyone here. And I'm interested to see how he plays out. But when it comes to this matchup in particular, Berjaya, they're looking to try and get a little bit more, but the one win Liyab got last split was against Berjaya.
Exactly, you know. Liyab might not have been able to take down anyone, but against Berjaya, they definitely hit the mark. So that's what we have to remember here, okay? Liyab might be 10th place, but they got their pride against Berjaya Dragons. On the other side, Berjaya Dragons also introducing a new support to the lineup. Unfortunately, Dolulu not playing anymore. We're going to have Philia later on the roster. But for now, Liyab Esports, Spouts in the top lane, Dodoi, the jungle. I love his Udyr. Xyliath going to be starting over Kanji today. And then we have Dawn plus Aiden as the new bot lane duo.
Yeah, and I mean, Dodoi, you mentioned you love his Udyr. Well, the Udyr was played in that one game that they did win. So perhaps they just go and try and get that early pick of the Udyr in that first phase. Liyab, definitely a team that's a bit more of a fan favorite. Yes, the results haven't come through, but they're definitely a very lovable team. So hopefully they get better results this time around. And it's not impossible to get playoffs. All you have to do is get 8th.
Yeah, that's the thing about the PCS format, is that it's actually very, very forgiving. If you get 8th place, you can sneak into the playoffs, and if you win one series, then you actually go into a double elim bracket. On the other side, we have Berjaya Dragons, Philia, of course, your mystery DLC character. We're going to have to unlock that later, but for the rest of the roster, Ozzy, the main carry in the top side, Enso in the jungle, Minji playing mid lane, and K2 as your AD carry.
Yeah, and K2 moving back into that AD carry role. Last split, he was playing support. And I mean, when it comes to information about K2 as an AD carry, definitely very good mechanically. But the issue has always been that K2, sometimes his brain goes a little bit MIA. Hopefully his time as support has added that extra game knowledge to supplement and round out his player skill sets. But that'll have to be really a big point of focus in this game, because if they end up making mistakes, it's not a good time, because Liyab definitely have a bit of they've got a thirst for that first win.
Yeah, I can see if Liyab takes down the first win of the season, I could see that completely changing their narrative. It's going to give them a massive confidence boost.
Yep.
And honestly, I think, you know, PCS has been very favorable. Oh, okay. I probably wouldn't go that far, in all honesty, but, you know, you never know. It could definitely happen. For me, Berjaya Dragons, the previous split, the main issue was they really had a lack of champion pools. They played Xayah and Gnar, and pretty much that was about it. Their only wins were basically on these two champions. So maybe this split, where we have a more favorable jungle mid meta, we're going to see Minji kind of pop out with his specialty picks. He was a great Kiana player, a really good assassin sort of player. And we're going to be heading into the ban picks directly. Berjaya Dragons taking out Lulu at the start. This is pretty interesting. Maybe Aiden's fame already precedes him on the Rift. On the other hand, we're going to see Liyab taking away the Thresh, making sure that K2 probably can't go into some hyper carries, and also the Lucian being taken away from Minji, which I think is a really smart call.
Yeah, and for Berjaya, they're just going ahead and targeting these enchanter supports. Also has a little bit of flexibility into the mid lane. So, I mean, we know that Kanji did play some Seraphine, but of course this is a different mid lane here in Xylith. We'll see what his champion pool ends up playing out as the split goes on, but for Liyab, what's this first pick going to be? Viego available, Gwen available, definitely power picks that you want for a first pick. It just ends up being, who are they going to give over? And it will be that Viego pick that they do lock in for themselves.
All right, that's going to leave up a lot of power picks still. I think Lee Sin is the one that I'm kind of most excited about here, just because Nocturne's off the table. Lee Sin seems to be extremely powerful. Xin Zhao, of course, another one. Probably the best early game duelist if you don't consider Trundle. That one's always going to be quite favorable and really sets up Minji to have a great early game. They can play through that. Also talking about Berjaya Dragons, their main carry is actually in the top lane. Ozzy does carry most of the damage on this team, has been their standout player. But we are going to get that explosive mid-jungle. This is something I love to see and something that wasn't really possible in the spring meta. Minji finally going to get his chance to shine.
Minji getting himself that LeBlanc pick, but going back to Ozzy, Ozzy, he was definitely a big powerhouse for this team. That's where the team played through. He did almost 28% of the team's damage. That's pretty unreal when it comes from the top lane perspective, and he's also going to get the chance to continue the shine if he's able to get something like a Gwen that is able to output so much damage in these team fights and also in that 1v1. But for Liyab, they get themselves that Varus. So looking for some lane dominance in that bottom lane. We'll see what they pair it up with, and we'll also see what Berjaya end up taking into that bottom lane, because K2 did like that Varus pick when he did play in that bot lane.
Yeah, he definitely was one of those players that played mainly long range, sort of immobile carries that provided a lot of utility for the team. We're seeing that again in the Varus. Berjaya Dragons trying to round out the first three picks with a support here. It's going to be something like the Alistar, very good roaming, kind of cancels out Leona completely in lane, so I do like this pickup from them. In the meantime, they also leave the last counter pick for Ozzy in the top lane, as we've mentioned. And Spells, on the other hand, is more of a weak side top laner, so this could be setting up for Berjaya to have a very, very dominant top side of the map already. In the meantime, Liyab, considering their bans, what are they going to take away from Ozzy at this point? There's a lot of great top lane champions. Renekton, definitely one of them. Gwen, as you mentioned, Lee Sin still lurking. There's almost too many picks to ban away at this point. Really depends on what Spells can pull out in this new season, I think.
Yeah, definitely a lot of flexibility here coming in for top side. It could also be that Viego headed into that top side, depending on the matchup, and it does look like they're going to go ahead, ban away the Diana, deny that away from Dodoy, but it does mean that Dodoy has the Udyr available. And while Udyr, not exactly the most oppressive jungler left in the pool, if you're looking for comfort, that is most certainly comfort.
Yeah, I would not be surprised to see if Dodoy goes back onto that one. I also really like the Trundle these couple of patches. 11.13 has been known as the Strikebreaker patch, where Riot pretty much admitted that they definitely overtuned the item. On 11.14, they nerfed the slow by 50%. That's how busted this item is on this patch. So we could be seeing a couple Strikebreakers come out. Dodoy also does play the Lee Sin. A lot of his career highlights was on that pick. So it could be going back to that once more. Has a decent enough matchup against the Xin Zhao. Doesn't win straight up 1v1, but level 6, if you get a lead, you can definitely burst him down. We're going to see probably most likely that going for Dodoy. Going to have to find out the last pick here, mid lane or top or jungle. Still yet to be decided. Very fun patch to play on. I think it's super hard on casters because you have to kind of know what the players want to do before you can properly assign the lanes. What's your take on these rotations here?
Yeah, I mean, my opinion was that they definitely needed some sort of AP champion. And I mean, the best option is to go ahead, draft some sort of AP mid laner, because the Gwen denied. That means not too many options from the top side. And then when it comes to the jungle, your only other AP option would be something like Lilia, Nidalee, as Rumble did get hit pretty hard on this patch. Still definitely playable if you really wanted to, but not a good matchup into Xin, as Xin pretty much shuts down a lot of these AP junglers, in my opinion.
Yeah, very strong dueling capability, has that Crescent Guard to protect backlines as well. And now we have the full compositions kind of locked in. It is going to be Ozzy on Gwen into the top side. None of these top laners are bringing Flash, by the way. That is super exciting. Whoever gets the first game down has that opportunity to just completely snowball the lane in their favor. So a lot of action in that lane, definitely. And for the bot lane, both sides are playing poke. I don't expect a lot to happen here. Ezreal not really that strong on this patch after the Divine Thunder nerfs, but still playable, pretty non-interactive. I think all the action is going to be happening on that top side.
Yeah, the Ezreal Varus lane, I would say, is a little bit more in favor for the Varus, since he does come online a little bit faster. It packs a little bit more of a punch, and for K2, it's going to be sitting back, making sure that this top side of the map gets to do what they want without losing too much on that bottom side. And I think for the storyline of this game, it has to be early roams coming in from both of these supports, because it is going to be a very top side focused game.
Definitely. I think both of these guys are going to be leaving lane. I would not be surprised to be seeing 10v10 Herald straight off the bat. And also, I would like to point out the mid lane matchup is something that's super interesting. Syndra versus LeBlanc, one of the highest caliber skill matchups that you can have. Sometimes you can use Scatter the Weak and just stun the LeBlanc as she tries to distort back into place. But other times, LeBlanc just plays you like a fiddle, gets the stun down. This is a super volatile matchup that can swing either side very, very heavily. I'm waiting to see that one, and Xayah, for me, has been Liyab's actually best player. It's kind of a tragedy that Liyab, the two of their best players, are both mid laners, so they can't play them at the same time. But Xayah, for me, has sort of been the hidden gem that hadn't got the chance to really shine because of the mage meta that didn't really allow him to showcase his tools properly. And now that things are different, now that we see more aggressive mid laners back into the pool, maybe this is Xayah's time to show what he's got.
Yeah, hopefully this is his time to shine, to really showcase his abilities. And this is a very high skill cap, high skill expression matchup, as you outlined earlier. So a lot of potential for fireworks in that mid lane. But again, all eyes on really this jungle support, how both sides really pair up with their duos and move around the map to attack the mid lane or attack that top lane.
We are going to be heading on to the Rift. No sneaky level 1 so far. Taking a look at the summoners and the rune choices here. Pretty standard across the board. We are going to get a Hail of Blades coming in from Dawn. So this is a little bit more auto attack focused than your poke focused setup, but still very, very strong. You definitely see a lot of Varus is still running this with the poke setup regardless. And coming into the top lane matchup, what are your thoughts on Gwen versus Viego? This is kind of the focal point between these two teams.
Yeah, and I mean, especially since both of these top laners did run the Ignite, any minuscule edge that is garnered by either of these top laners is just going to really snowball out of control, in my opinion, because of how focused these top lane summoner spells are just built for fighting. So junglers are going to want to really come up there, and the 2v2, I would say Enzo has the slight advantage in regards to the matchup against the Lee Sin, but I would also say that Viego has a little bit better poke and sustain when it comes to early phases of the lane. So Speltz, he really has to force the issue during these early levels.
Yeah, we see the Gwen cheese kind of coming out already. Level 1, Gwen puts that skill into E, gets the extra attack speed. It's very difficult to fight against her level 1, and most champions just can't do it. Can't take the sustain trade, so we see Speltz keeping his distance a little bit early. But as you mentioned, Viego does have that lane poke advantage. Like, Viego's auto attack range is just so ridiculous at 225, probably the longest for range for a melee champion so far in the meta. And we're seeing a slight advantage for Ozzy. He does have those 1,000 cuts stacked up already all the way, so it's going to be quite difficult for Speltz to engage at this point.
Yeah. But the nice thing, of course, is the fact that Speltz is a resource-less champion, so he's going to be able to continuously spam out spells, whereas on the flip side, Ozzy, he is going to have to be a little bit conservative, at least managing his mana. So he has to keep track of those resources, and for Speltz, it's just all about those cooldowns. So he can just continue to farm away. He should be completely fine in that lane. And the other point of contention is going to be this mid lane. Minji, he has to be able to get these waves shoved on out to provide support for perhaps a jungle invade coming in from Xin, as we see Enzo already looking to get aggressive, but will just turn for the Scuttle Crab instead.
Yeah, that was actually pretty polite by Enzo. I was expecting the audacious charge directly onto Lee Sin's face, but you know, he just plays it slowly, says, yeah, I'm happy with the double scuttle. You know, I don't have to beat you upright. Definitely a much more rational player than I am. When I'm playing Xin, I see someone, I eat him. Like,
oh yeah,
I'm
definitely
almost
me
guaranteed
as well.
to win anyway.
It's the
but we
only
do
way
see
to play.
Liyab with a bit of a collapse, and they are going to swing their entire team just to make sure that they all get a scuttle apiece. That is teamwork on display right there.
Yeah, honestly, a really nice rotation coming in from Liyab to guarantee Doughboy is able to secure himself that resource. It makes sure that he doesn't fall too far behind in this matchup. It means that he's able to keep up in the EXP against Xin, which is basically all Xin really gets out of this matchup. He has to apply pressure and apply it constantly. But as far as the rest of the map, it means that, well, you have to sacrifice a little bit on this Varus. 4 CS down to this Ezreal, and also in that top lane, 6 CS advantage coming in from Ozzy. So they make the play to make sure the Lee Sin gets what he wants, but as a result, some of these side lanes suffering a little bit. I mean, even in that mid lane too.
Yeah, we did see the mid lane actually give Minji a perfect wave shove. He actually got the wave entirely underneath the tower, so Xylioth was actually forced to miss quite a few minions right there. And he also left early, so that definitely does stack up in favor of Minji. I do expect him to hit level 6 and start roaming a little bit earlier here. And on the flip side, as you mentioned, the bot lane not doing that hot. The top lane, we do have to talk about the 11.13 nerfs to Viego. No longer able to get as much healing from the minion wave after Blade of the Ruined King there. So it does affect the sustained trades against Ozzy. Both top laners, however, have burned their teleport, so he's not in too bad of a spot. It was pushed down behind, but he is okay for now. I guess the real lead really is on Minji and his ability to get that level lead a little sooner.
Yeah, the level lead is going
actually
to be...
not even that bad.
Yeah, the level lead actually ends up being pretty much at the same time. So now this is where the fun part starts, because now these supports on their recall looking to try and perhaps look for a roam, but does look like both of these supports hit the recall button and just head straight back bot lane, which a little bit unfortunate, I would say, as I would have liked for them to just run mid, see if there's a play to fish out, and then if that doesn't end up happening, just walk back bot lane. You don't lose a whole lot of time there.
I do want to point out in the mid lane, Xylioth actually doesn't even have enough mana for a full combo at this point. Really well done by Minji, outplaying his lane and making sure he has full prio. So this trade just going to go to Berjaya Dragons completely uncontested.
Yeah, Berjaya able to get this first dragon is Lee Sin also not in position to go for the contest, so everything lined up for Berjaya. They get themselves a free Drake and line themselves up for a really nice start here. I would say that, again, they have pretty good scaling. They have the Gwen. The LeBlanc's going to be a bit of a nightmare when it comes to these side lanes as well. A great 1-3-1 setup for the side of Berjaya.
There's some interesting plays coming out here. Falia trying to hold the wave, loses half of his HP, but says, yeah, I'm fine with this. There's nothing I want to play for here. The blue's not up, the Drake was just gone. I'm willing to take this damage. Real nice and upstanding support right here. We saw a little bit of an incursion from Liyab into the jungle, trying to goad Berjaya Dragons into a 3v3 with Alistar very low on HP, but Berjaya doesn't bite. They just stand back, and it seems like we are going to get a bit of a lull until the next support roam, as you mentioned, or maybe that Herald play that is coming up very shortly.
Yeah, and I mean, usually you would see these supports go for the recalls right now because it is 8 minutes and you want your support to just make that rotation over to that Herald, but
Minji is going to take the Q, but it doesn't matter. That wasn't the correct Minji. LeBlanc is able to use her passive, get out of there. Does lose the flash, but I gotta say, the extra style points he got on that trade, okay, it wasn't worth it, but to me it was. I should put it that way.
Hey, it's not always about the big numbers. Sometimes it's about sending the message here. And, I mean, these two teams, we don't necessarily have the highest of expectations. So, it's not necessarily going to be the cleanest, but can we get... No. Good damage, though, onto Dodoy, and that might actually force him to go for a recall after he donates this blue buff.
Oh, that's pretty smart from Aiden. Does pop the scanner, is going to know that Enzo is there waiting for him. But in the meantime, it does look like Liyab might have over-rotated here. The bot lane is completely open. We just saw Dawn actually go to base, and this, I think at least is going to be 2 turret plates, so unless Liyab can get good value out of this Herald, it actually is going to be pretty much evenly traded.
And I mean, Berjaya, they're already 400 gold up, which is pretty much the gold difference here that you get from the Rift Herald charges. I think he missed out on the extra plate gold.
Yeah, he definitely missed out on it. Oh, he could have definitely stayed for that one.
Yeah, definitely a little bit dangerous if he did end up overstaying for sure, because of the fact that Dawn had that ultimate available and very easy to chain into, of course, the Leona kit. But K2 level 7 has the EXP advantage here against Dawn. That's going to be really nice here. And Felia doing an admirable job just with both of these supports being their first time in a bit of a pro setting here. It's looking relatively okay. Not a bad showing.
Nightstar, I've got to tell you, we are just built differently. If I have to burn my cleanse to get that plate, I'm burning my cleanse. So that's just how I roll. We see the emote war going on. K2 getting a little bit annoyed that Aiden, the rookie, is flashing him the emotes, and he's taking none of that. He's just dealing it straight back. He says, you know what? Divine Thunder has been nerfed. I don't care. I don't even have that mythic anyway. It doesn't affect me. I'm still going to dunk on you kids. And he's doing exactly that. This is setting up very, very well for Berjaya's second Drake of the game. Minji is ahead. Bot lane is ahead. And I really want to see another Minji trade. It was able to dodge out on Scatter the Weak last time with the Mimic. Very well done. He's going to continue that lead. And now Enzo is on the bot lane for maximum pressure as well. Root does go down, but K2 has that cleanse. Now, I guess he did save the cleanse for this play rather than the turret plating.
He saves the cleanse to make sure they're able to get themselves a dragon. I think that's probably worth it here. As
ooh, Scatter the Weak does land. Minji is going to get hit up, and First Blood goes over to Xyliath. Really well done with the burst damage. Finally, he's not able to escape with those dexterous fingers. Xylia is going to get hit by the wind becomes lightning, but he's underneath this tower. No trade happening so far. That's a great play because Berjaya Dragons now cannot start this Drake.
Yeah, and that's a really nice play coming in from Liyab. And that's level 9 on that Syndra, having max skill points into that Q, maximizing your burst damage, being able to toss out that ultimate as well. But it does look like Berjaya are still interested in trying to contest, and it looks like Liyab are the ones that will just say, all right, it's all yours.
Yeah, I definitely could see that being kind of a disastrous spot for Liyab if they wanted to force it. So I would say actually probably just, going for the Drake at that point was a little bit much. Minji, you have to commend him, burns the teleport instantly for the objective, knows that they're playing for the Drake stack, so he doesn't really hold on to the TP, and Liyab, I think, correctly also backs out. That did not look like a good spot to be in with Minji coming in and, Enzo having everything as well.
Yeah, and I think it was really based on the fact that Xylia, he didn't have the ultimate available because, of course, he used it in that 2v2 tray to be able to secure the kill. So that's a big tool removed from their team fight capabilities. And with both top laners a little bit reluctant to expend that teleport, they go ahead, concede that, and hey, they still have the gold advantage. They can still look for some of these skirmishes. But for Berjaya, now they've got 2 dragons, they're looking for that third, and if they're able to secure that, it is Mountain Soul on the table. So it's definitely a very good dragon on the table.
Yeah, incredibly powerful. And I do want to point out, and please contradict me if you think that is the case, but I feel like Liyab, this comp does have a bit of a timer. Most of their champions do not scale as well compared to their counterparts here. Mm-hmm. Probably only Dodoy has like an even scaling against Xin Zhao, but even then, neither of them are exactly great scalers. Mm-hmm. While on the other hand, Ezreal, you do expect him to do a little bit more in the late game when at the same case as well. While Liyab, they are sending a 4-man hit squad up into the top lane. Berjaya Dragons has spotted this. Ozzy is going to back out, and we are going to see a mirror trade on the other side of the map. It's about who can push these towers down faster than the other at this point. It does look like Liyab is on that tower much, much faster than K2 and Philia are able to do at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not a huge difference here. Yes, you're going to concede that first tower gold, but at the same time, there's no plates remaining, so you're not getting extra gold from that. And also just the fact that, well, the Rift Herald was not really impactful there, I don't believe, coming in from Liyab. Yes, they got that first one, but I don't think they got much value out of it. So Berjaya still in a great position here. And yeah, going back to the scaling question, the Syndra can outscale the LeBlanc here if it's just a straight on team fight, but the fact that there's so much 1-3-1 pressure coming in, yeah, this LeBlanc is really just going to go ahead and be fairly uncontested. And if you're able to find a match for this LeBlanc, how are you going to match the Gwen?
Yeah, exactly. I think you hit the nail on the head, is that both Syndra and Varus want to sit mid lane, and they can't really rotate into the side lane, so Liyab in the later phases of the game is going to have a little bit of trouble here. Good tempo play from K2, just delaying Xylia from getting his back at this point. And we see Berjaya moving into a much more comfortable 1-3-1, I think a much more natural setup for their composition. On the other hand, Liyab has to respond in some shape or form. Now, we did see Dodo already catch out Minji once, and might be able to do it again. Liyab with a bit of a gold lead at this point. I do actually kind of like the Herald trade here. I think they got a lot of extra gold. They were ahead in tempo. Their bot lane was losing, so I felt like the trade from Liyab actually made a lot of sense. They had one extra objective, and they also actually just got more CS out of that play overall. So, I do like the play from Liyab, but I'm not sure it's enough to actually put them in the driver's seat at this point.
Yeah, and If you look up and down, like the mid lane difference is somewhat minimal, but now it's going to start growing because of the fact that you're going to be able to get solo lane farm onto the LeBlanc, and for K2, he's perfectly fine being able to clear out these waves in that mid lane. So this is an important Herald play.
Oh, Aiden has to flash across the wall. Minji did tack in with the chain right there. Another flash traded by the support. In the meantime, Spells pops a Blade of the Ruin King. Is going to force a flash out of Minji, and that means the Drake as well coming up very shortly here. Liyab taking full control of mid lane after Berjaya with a failed pincer move. But Ozzy is on the backline, the exact same spot where Hanabi was. Are we going to get some snip time once again? Don does have his flash and his ultimate, and they do spot Ozzy. Really heads up play coming out from Liyab.
Minji teleport.
They smell the engage. Don gonna throw out the chains of corruption. Doesn't find anyone. Felia goes in for the two-man engage, and in go Ozzy as well. But they get the first kill. Xylia has been chased down. He's down. Ozzy goes in for the second kill, and this is turning up as a bit of a massacre. Dodoy flashes in for the trade back, but Spells might not have wanted to go in as close. Heartseeker Strike goes in once more and nearly gets the trade back kill. He could have had the Sovereign's Domain and kept the fight going, but unable to find that last chase down. And now Dawn is the sole surviving member on Liyab as Berjaya Dragons walk away with a 2-kill advantage.
And as we get to see the replay once again, what doesn't get captured is the fact that Minji goes back, recalls, and immediately teleports straight down bot lane. And with that split, again, it's a split focus here. Coming in with these flank angles, that's just so beautiful to watch. You saw it start out with the Gwen, and then right after, they all group up and clump up, but then this LeBlanc pressure just pulls their attention away, and that gives that extra space for Felia to go ahead and engage, make that beautiful start for the fight. And I mean, they also burned that Varus ultimate, so that's just such a large cooldown to lose at the start of the fight that Liyab, they just don't have answers. And when you're collapsed from all directions, all you can really do is spin your head around and just go dizzy.
The Drake is still up, has not been secured by Berjaya just yet. Filia this time around is half health, does still have the ultimate, and Liyab does not look like they're going to get it up. They're going to go in. Filia doesn't actually hit anyone. The Drake is going to get secured. K2 is completely unopposed in the backline. He's going to find the first 2 kills of the matchup. Heartseeker Spells going in into the backline. Can he actually find the hill? He doesn't get the Ezreal. Heartseeker does not land, but Ozzy is trapped in no man's land. He's going to fall after a valiant attempt at clawing things back. And at the end of the day, Berjaya Dragons, they do get a +2 kill lead back, but Berjaya do find their way at Soul Point.
Yeah, it's going to be a 3-for-1 trade here, and the difference between this fight and the previous fight is, again, the fact that there was no flank angles. There's no split pressure coming in, and Felia, he doesn't get that freedom to then engage on a distracted opponent. They see the engage coming, they go ahead, burn those disengage tools with the flash, and then they reset the fight. And the fight reset just is that much better for the side of Liyab. When Syndra gets the fight front to back, and the Varus gets the fight front to back, that's where they're going to be able to shine. And they were able to find that angle in that fight, and for Berjaya, they have to be able to recognize that fact and go back to setting up those fights.
I just want to say the MVP for me in that fight was definitely Alistar, but it was Spelts' Alistar. Aiden Filia actually missed his entire combo. WQ hit nothing, and then Spelts took his body and then WQ'd the ramp. So the Alistar difference in that team fight was a bit stark for the two sides there, and Liyab definitely getting the better deal out of that one.
Yeah, Spelts had a fantastic re-engage with that Alistar, and I mean, again, K2, he did have some free time to pump out some damage, but the fight broke down a little bit too quickly for him. So he wasn't able to get maximum damage in that fight, and he's going to have to wait for the next one, as he's had a relatively good time in this game, but only won 1-1.
And we are going to be seeing a contest here from Berjaya moving up towards the top lane. It's going to be very difficult for Xyliath to push any further. I think this is just a move to cut off the top. They do get Baron Vision control as well. And at this point, the game seems quite even. Berjaya with definitely more objective threat, but Liyab with a very solid gold lead at this point. I kind of have to pick your brains here, Nightstar. Who do you actually favor from this point on?
Yeah, I mean, for Liyab, it's about being able to try and drag themselves into a bit of an ARAM situation and force Berjaya to answer. They're going to try and group up. They're going to try and siege here. They have the one-item power spikes, right? They've got that Ludens. They've got the Dustblade completed. Now they're already on 2 items. So Xyliath, he's going to be extremely strong here because he has the slight advantage over Minji. Dawn also, you know, they're matching timings here with items, but once he gets his upgrade on the Manamune into the Muramana, he's going to be incredibly strong in these siege situations. And for Liyab, it's about forcing these siege situations, these ARAM situations, which we look down upon sometimes here because it seems kind of silly. But in this case, that is the answer to Berjaya's composition. They have to force these ARAM situations over the 1-3-1.
I think we're both Americans, so we both agree that NARAM is the best thing that League of Legends has ever brought.
Yeah.
That is North America's contribution to the world meta. So
yeah.
I'm not going to talk about ARAM. I have no, prejudices against the ARAM. It is part of my blood. It is part of my heritage. So I will proudly run the NARAM flag, and I hope Liyab can do so as well, just like you mentioned. It seems a lot easier to kind of land your poke and land your crowd control in those situations. On the other side, I do want to pay attention to the side lanes here. We're seeing that Speltz with the Blade of the Rune King and no Mystics. This is a pretty strong dueling build. We can see, on the other hand, Ozzy going for the Zhonya's instead is going to put him behind compared to something like the Nashor's Tooth. So I actually feel like Liyab at this stage, outside of the NARAM, they definitely still have some tools to kind of control side waves, especially in the top side matchup.
Yeah, and this build coming in from Ozzy, having the double armor coming into his build, but also just having the Zhonya's for team fights, it really is just geared to try and match the team fight prowess offered by the Liyab team.
Ooh, Aiden goes in, but Minji able to dodge out. The counter engage goes straight in, and Dawn is dead. That is the AD carry for one side of the team. Speltz going in, Heartseeker Strike not able to find Minji. And the Black Rose booms once more, able to dodge out on multiple engages. Minji just playing Liyab for fools, and that's going to be Baron.
Berjaya, they just explode into that fight. Any of these skirmish situations, when you're able to split up the fights, is going to favor Berjaya a lot more, and that's exactly what happened there. They, again, come in with some of these flanks, and for Liyab, you can't get distracted. You have to all be on the same page, and they weren't in that situation. That's going to possibly cost them that Baron, as Berjaya, they're looking for both objectives.
Ozzy is actually able to chase away Liyab members on the Drake. Berjaya get a 3-man Drake, a 2-man Drake, and on the other side, a 3-man defend. That is just perfect allocation here. Now, Dodoy is going to start this one again, but we see Minji with the TP coming in really, really fast with the extra movement speed. Can they actually find this soul? No. Liyab is still going to secure the soul, but can they make the escape is the next question. Minji misses the chain, but Ozzy does find that one kill. Needlework slowing a lot of members. Dawn has to flash out, and that should be it so far. Liyab at least prevent the Mountain Soul from going over to the other team.
A really nice contest there and nice play coming in from Liyab. Yes, they do lose Aiden there, but in the end, to deny Mountain Soul is definitely worth the cost. However, at the same time, it means that Berjaya, with this Baron buff, will be able to secure a lot of standing gold on this map, as they're also now going to be able to really work, again, those side lanes.
It's been a 4,000 gold swing from Leah, still staying alive. Dodoy, this is such a Dodoy play. I'm sorry, but this is quintessential Dodoy play. It's like, I'm gonna be the hero here. I might not succeed, but I will always try.
Yeah, he tries to delete, unfortunately not a very important member. Yeah. Unfortunately, if he almost one combos, say, the Ezreal, then it might really change how these fights possibly play out, but dumping your entire kit into a Alistar, not the ideal move there, and now the siege is going to kick in. They're down their jungler, so they don't have any magical kick potential here in this fight as well. So it really just comes down to, well, I guess we just give up double inhib here.
Yeah, that Dodoi play really reminds me a line from this song that Kanye West and Jay-Z sang together. Nobody really understands what it means, but it's provocative. It gets the crowd going. And hopefully that's what Dodoi can do for Liyab. Sure, he didn't succeed, but his audacity might spur Liyab into trying even harder. Okay, yeah, that was actually just a bad play, but I'm trying to come up with like...
rally the troops. You know?
Exactly.
It's about sending the message to the team. Hey, I might have used my entire kit onto an Alistar, but at least I'm using my kit. Guys, we need to somehow press buttons.
Yeah, that's a trade that I'm definitely not going to take. Berjaya Dragons offered them Alistar in return for 2 inhibitors. And Dodoi,
yeah, that's
Dodoi
the trade
took that trade. Yeah, probably not the best trades in the history of trades. We can put it that way.
Yeah, not ideal there. And now Berjaya, they're just going to play the game very slow here and just work these side lanes and make sure to capitalize and get all the standing gold that they can before they go ahead and take that next team fight. They don't have to force things here because there's, again, so much standing gold. So they're going to collect that. It's going to feel very similar to that first game that we had, PSG slowly bleeding out. And while it may not look as clean and fanciful as PSG, I think it's going to have a very similar end result.
I just don't see how Liyab can contest the next Drake at this point. They don't have any of their bottom side inhibitors. They're just going to get pushed so far into their own base at this point. Berjaya Dragons, they basically have full map control. They don't even really have to win now. You know, they're just kind of forcing it because, might as well try.
Yeah, and this is the issue. If they lose this last inhib, they're really not going to have control over any of their waves. So Dodoi, this time, this flank pressure, he's going to try and stave off and maybe find an engage here.
They do have the Chains of Corruption onto Enso, but he's a very tanky Xin Zhao, and he's going to not take any damage here. Survives the entire fight. It is going to be Liyab. That's a great 4-man scatter the weak, but it's not enough as Berjaya Dragons continue to pile on. They get the mid laner, and that's triple inhibitors as well. The world is their pie at this point. Berjaya Dragons, they can go anywhere. They can do anything. Their imagination is the limit.
Yeah, Dodoi perhaps looking for yet another trade on Tefelia, saying, hey, this is the rematch. Let's go for the 1v1, yeah. But it looks like they're just going to go ahead and end the game right here, right now.
Double TP, straight chasing into the fountain at this point. Chains of Corruption doesn't land, and Berjaya Dragons are going to close this one off. It was a very close game, and it wasn't. I really have to give huge props to Minji. You know, it was so crazy that they all end on Minji, and they didn't even burn his flash. That's how slippery Minji was in that mid lane engage.
Yeah, they forced a lot of cooldowns onto that LeBlanc, but LeBlanc just way too slippery here. It will be Berjaya taking game number 2 of our summer split in a fairly clean fashion. Yes, it was a little bit back and forth in the early stages, but once that Baron came through, it was just so clean and so clinical, and it's really showcasing the power of these 1-3-1 compositions in this current meta.
I'll be honest, I don't think Berjaya expected the game to end that fast. On the end of that cam, we could see all of their players having that kind of bewildered smirk there. It was like, okay, that was a lot easier than I thought it would be. And unfortunately, the last two fights, I think, really showcased some of the problems that we had with shot calling on Liyab. Dodo in the first fight goes in, trades his life for Alistar, doesn't even get the trade, loses 2 inhibitors. And in the last fight, where they were trying to play base defense, Dodo doesn't even come onto the scene until 2 of his members are already dead. So I think we have that sort of communication problem with Liyab, where I don't think they're making the smartest of trades, and when they are doing those trades, they definitely are not on the same page.
Yeah, and I also think it's a problem with Lee Sin as a jungler, right? When it comes to those later game situations, if you're not ahead, you don't have that damage to one-shot a carry. So then you're sitting on the side just waiting and hoping perhaps that you do have a secondary engage, because Lee Sin just cannot be, at least from the jungler position, that primary engage. He doesn't have the items or the stats to really survive that initial engage.
Yeah, I felt like this game, Liyab was, we saw kind of the same issues, but we have to commend them on the early game. I feel like this is one of the best early games that we've seen from Liyab in quite a while. I think the trades
Improvement.
where they took top lane tower, first tower plus Herald for that trade was really nice. They were up 2,000 gold facing down Berjaya Dragons at that point, and it was just that huge blunder trying to catch on Minji that cost the gold to go back 4,000 in the side of Berjaya Dragons. And we're going to be taking a look at basically the game-winning team fight at this point, where Minji had so much burst and just not a lot that Liyab can do on the flip side.
Yeah, and we see Dodoy just pretty much locked out of that fight the entire time. The moment he goes in, he just gives a kick over to K2, but by the time he gets the kick off, the fight's essentially done. And so there's no follow-up cooldowns to be able to capitalize off of that kick. So K2 just kind of shrugs it off and just goes, all right, well, kind of stung a little bit.
I will say, though, he did scare him. He got his cleanse. You saw K2 right there. He was shivering. He was like, "Oh my god, what is this Lee Sin doing? Where did he come from?" He did insta cleanse, even though it doesn't actually do anything anymore. But so that's gonna be game 2 so far, and I think for Berjaya Dragons, this game was, I think it was interesting. I don't feel like they really won the game in terms of a team fashion. I don't feel like we really saw how well they could execute their 1-3-1, because it honestly just didn't get to that point. But, how would you rate kind of Berjaya Dragons coming in, and especially their new support on this Alistar?
Yeah, the Alistar certainly had his moments, right? We saw the engage around that, I think it was the second dragon, but then there was also the follow-up dragon afterwards where Speltz had the better Alistar play in that situation. So definitely need to see a little bit more from both of these supports, but not a bad showing from Felia. And I mean, it's also like your job as the Alistar is to make sure that you disengage when you need to protect that Ezreal. But once the rest of those members go in, your job's fairly easy, right? Everyone's distracted by the Gwen, by the Xin, by the LeBlanc, so able to get off multiple CZ targets.
I think it was a pretty decent showing for the rookie here of Felia, taking over Dolulu's spot on Berjaya Dragons in their starting position here. And we are going to be taking a look at the MVP. Oh, I'm a little bit surprised here, but it's actually going to be Ozzy on his Gwen. Had a very, very good first dragon fight, and I think that's why he received the MVP right here. 3,000 extra gold lead at the end is just that outburst of gold that was given to Berjaya Dragons at the Baron that really shifted this game so dramatically.
And I think the bigger stat is to really point out the fact that he had 80% KP, so a really nice play, just making sure he was wherever his team needed him to be. And a lot of this game was decided at those dragon fights, and the side of Berjaya, they were the ones to perform better.
Got the first 3 Drakes straight off the bat and snowballed that quite well. So Berjaya Dragons